GRIDLIFE is known for a lot of firsts, but this is the first time in history that drift cars have taken to the hills and valleys of upstate New York's Watkins Glen International. Welcome back to GRIDLIFE Live. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by Charlie Enslin up here in the booth. High five. It's exciting to be up here. This is my home track, Charlie. I can't wait. But this track, this course, the spectators here have never seen what they're about to see. Drift cars going out to experience Watkins Glen International, a premier road course here in the United States. They're going to go out for a sighting lap, Charlie, and then they're going to figure out where is best to send it sideways and kick up some smoke.
I tell you, I've never been here. Now I'm, 70 feet up in the air. We get a whole view of the facility itself and the surrounding valleys and mountains. It is absolutely beautiful here, and I cannot wait to see these guys and gals throw it into turn one here.
It's going to be a lot of fun. There are 11 corners on this racetrack, and right now they're just getting a sighting lap because these drivers, a lot of them have probably never even seen this racetrack too. So there's a lot of information they have to take in real quick.
Tell you what caught me by surprise. I took a lap around here in the K-Truck. I probably hold the record for the fastest K-Truck ever around Watkins Glen.
Yeah, like an 8-minute lap?
Something like that. But the elevation, even though I've played this in the sim a bunch, really caught me by surprise. Some of it we knew, but others is kind of just like, whoa.
Yeah, it's a big place, a lot of elevation change, 110 feet from turn 2 to turn 4 in particular, and now we're heading down the back straightaway to the inner loop, the bus stop that was added in 1992.
Look at this gorgeous scenery we got here.
Oh man, upstate New York, and it's almost like reverse fall right now because of the way the trees are blooming.
Yep, exactly.
It looks orange almost. But GRIDLIFE Live is powered by Hyundai N, Never Just Drive, and Falcon, the official tire of GRIDLIFE Track Battle in the first foray into the inner loop, the bus stop chicane.
I think this is going to be a hot spot right here.
I think so too. You're going to have a right, a left, and a right, and then you have this long right-hander, the downhill
really
turn
put
5.
The power down, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Depends on how much speed you carry in through this bus stop, so it'll be interesting to see if they attack it or if they really initiate after the bus stop starts and lay into the power for that long right-hander.
Yeah, so lots for these drivers to learn. Again, the other spot I think will be really good to get the car sideways is down in the boot section. There's not a lot of spectators down there, so maybe they'll conserve the tires for some higher spectator areas. But the boot section added in 1971, you see the split here.
Yep.
The drivers are going to stay left. The short course, the NASCAR course, goes right there and shortcuts that entire mile. So we're going to do the extra mile, and that is an additional section of the course that looks like a boot from above. They got the laces, the toe, and the heel.
And there's a lot of elevation over there as well.
A ton of elevation. I mean, you go downhill very, very steeply and then sharply uphill. So here's downhill turn 6.
Right.
You fall down a couple stories. Then you continue.
A couple stories, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Then you continue downhill towards turn number. Oh, I forgot. You skipped this section.
I did not go this way. Yeah, I took a wrong turn and did not see any of this, but it looks really cool from this point of view.
It is. It's honestly, it's one of the coolest sections on the racetrack. So you continue downhill here, and then you get to the toe of the boot, which is just off screen. We're going to pan over to the right.
Yeah, look at that.
And then it goes downhill straight into uphill and climbs through the toe. So you go into this, you attack this hard, and the car gets compressed right at the entry to the corner. You accelerate out, head uphill towards turn number 8. This is the heel of the boot now. You can see the boot shape now as the toes on the far end, the heel's right on our side.
Yeah.
Turn 8, and then you head up the hill towards turn 9.
I tell you, there might not be a lot of spectators over there, but as a driver, that downhill beginning of that boot looks like fun to me.
It's a really cool section. There's only one way in and one way out as a spectator here, and there's a tunnel. You can kind of see it just beyond the end of the rumble strip on the bottom left of the screen. Right across, there's a tire wall, and you can see the pipe sticking out. That's the way in and out of the boot section.
Yeah, neat part about this place is there's just a ton of spots to go and watch different things that are happening throughout the day, especially drifting. I'm kind of curious where our spectators are going to end up focusing to, where these drift cars are going to really be getting after it.
Yeah, so we did a little bit of testing in Assetto Corsa to kind of figure out how would a drift car approach a place like Watkins Glen, because there's so much straightaway between all the corners, and they're long sweeping corners that we were trying to figure out how do you stitch together multiple corners here. It's going to be a challenge. We'll probably see a lot of mangying back and forth, trying to carry that speed. But
we also saw we were using 300 horsepower cars, what are kind of our go-to average J cars to test these tracks out, and we really couldn't do anything with those. We had to bump up to about 450 to really be able to link some of these corners. Probably because our skills aren't good enough. A lot of these people can make do with a lower horsepower car, but it's going to be very interesting. Different cars, different horsepower levels, different skill levels on this awesome racetrack.
Now into turn 10 here, and this is the penultimate corner on the lap. And this is almost flat out in low-powered cars, but this is an area right in front of a grandstand. I think we're going to see some drivers kick it out over here and then sweep out drivers left, back into turn 11, which is the final turn on the racetrack. The challenge with the last corner, and Greg and I touched on it in the previous segment, there is a wall, and there's pavement, rumble strip, wall. And if you make a mistake there, you're going to hit that wall. And it gives a little bit. It's a safer barrier, but you don't want to get into it. You see it right there.
Right there.
And the racing line will take you right up to it. And we'll see what the drifters do here as they're getting their first look down at turn number 1 here up next.
Absolutely.
You can see all the foam blocks in between the steel wall.
I was just going to mention that. It obviously indicates a very high impact area.
Yes, and it was. I think I recall 2008 in the NASCAR race, there was a big pileup over there. They had tire walls that just bounced everybody back into traffic. So they installed that safer barrier, steel and foam energy reduction system.
We might about to see the first.
Here we go. Oh, a little bit of a test there down at turn number 1. And again, it's going to be a lot of working up to it, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. A lot of feeling it out. See if any of these cars get paired up. Here we go.
Little look at it. The other thing that might be working against them here, Charlie, we talk about drift cars needing grip in some places. This track is a pretty fresh repave. There's grip everywhere. So how you break away from that grip, the grip level is already very high. You see it here.
S14.
And that is
really putting it down. But you can see you get out of it. They're really not sure how to get into the 2 yet. It's very exciting seeing these guys and gals figure this out kind of live here.
Yeah.
No one's got any reference for any of this concrete or asphalt that this track has, especially when it comes to drifting.
Right, and they're learning the entire step of the way, and they can come back and reset down here in pit lane, but right now it's still just scouting, sighting, testing the grip. Right now the track is dry. We're expecting rain later today, so that'll work against them in the later drift sessions as well. So this is their time to experience the grip levels and kind of understand how the asphalt is. The one thing that this track now with the new repave, the pavement is all the same everywhere. Prior to the repave, there were concrete strips everywhere, and so you'd have to the grip level would change from corner to corner, or even different lines in the corner.
Go through the bus stop. We knew this would kind of be a hot spot.
Yep.
Everyone kind of just trying to figure it out a little bit.
And again, still you see them just kind of just kicking the rear end out a little bit, just to see how quickly it snaps back, because they don't know how much grip they have, right? And there's a ton of it.
Cars stacking up here.
Yeah, here we go. This is going to be the hot spot, I think. This is where they're going to kick it out. And this is sights that you've never seen before at Watkins Glen, drifting on the full course.
Amazing. We got some pretty neat cars out here today. I could understand as a drift driver to buy a ticket here and try and drift this unknown is a little bit of a thing too. I think we saw some lower numbers because a lot of people are like, I don't know. I don't know about this one.
It's definitely not a known value. Like when we go to Gingerman or we go to Lime Rock now,
you can watch videos on it and see people's different initiation points and styles there. This is just everyone figuring it out right now.
Yeah, turn 6, this is a pretty treacherous corner even for the grip cars. So now you get sideways on purpose and you could slide out, not a lot of runoff there. And then all the boot, really. There's just such a little margin for making mistakes. And when you're putting the car sideways, you're really relying on your footwork at that point to keep your line. And if you get that all crossed up, Charlie, you're going to end up offline in the fence.
Especially with how big most of these corners are. You kind of got to get to a point and lay into it and just hope you got your line right and really stick to it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to correct in the middle of a corner just because of how big the corners are.
Right, well, that's the other thing, right? We talked about how the corners are very sweeping. A lot of drift courses or traditional drift courses have very tight hairpins and things. That's not the case here. You see a spin at turn number 9. The radii of these corners is incredibly wide and long, and they continue for so long that if you don't have really high power and a lot of angle, you're going to have a hard time completing an entire course.
Or on the other side of that, if you don't have that power, like we're seeing looks like a Miata here, possibly. I'm not sure, actually. That's not fancy.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, they look the same from the front. I mean, I'll give you. I'll give you that.
You compensate with that just by entering a lot faster, but that obviously requires a lot more commitment. Power you can kind of get in and out of and save yourself there. If you don't have that power, you're going to really just have to throw it in.
Yep. And here we go, turn 10. A test drift there, and this the 10-11 complex, I think, is where we're going to see drivers try to link.
Sure.
That straightaway is not as short as it might look, and this is kind of similar in a sense to turns 2 and 3 at Lime Rock, where there's a little bit of a straight between them, and if you get enough speed, you can link them all together, but it's going to require more speed here than that complex did at Lime Rock.
I think we're back to that commitment talk. You know, it's going to really just take a lot of commitment and being okay with the outcome, so to speak.
Yep, and Pete Collins is here as well, not in the car that he brought to CMP.
This is a great looking car. I love a car with white wheels, especially a drift car with white wheels.
And turn 1 is turning into a pretty good drift corner. You see the smoke clouds clearing over the grandstands. Here's the Ute down into turn 1. You were talking about this engine last night, Charlie. Tell me a little bit about this thing.
Yeah, so spent a little time talking to this gentleman last night, him and his wife, both from Australia, hence the Ute. But this has got a Ford Barra motor in it, which is a 4-liter inline 6 motor that was made in Australia, and it's basically a Ford-made 2JZ. So they make a ton of horsepower very easily when you turbocharge them. They're quite heavy, similar like to an RB or one of those JZs like I was talking about, but just kind of a goofball thing that never really caught on here for obvious reasons. But in Australia, it's a kind of like a K-swap. They're just abundant. They're in a lot of things, and they make a ton of horsepower.
There's Pete Collins in that blue BMW, again, testing the waters. Not in the car that he brought to CMP. That car, I think, transmission or a differential or something.
Yeah.
That blew out before the weekend even started.
Unfortunately, and he was really looking forward to putting on a show at CMP with that car. Look at, he's really in it.
Carrying angle all the way through 5 and got it snapped back straight right at the exit. But that's going to be a fun corner at speed. And it goes downhill, so the track's kind of falling away the entire time. So keeping the angle consistent will probably be a challenge.
Yeah, you can see these guys trying to figure out this downhill. They're much like in a grip car, you got less traction. So what it took to get up in the first corners, you don't have anymore. And you really got to be ready for that car to snap a little bit harder.
And into the bus stop again. Your big commitment on entry here.
Great looking S13.
And a little bit snap back to the left. Kick it out again. Jump the curb. And now into the carousel, turn 5. We'll see how much he gets this thing sideways or if he'll bail out. He's going to go for it, I think. Oh, he tried.
Yeah.
He tried for it.
So, yeah, seen that commitment there.
Yeah, a lot of tentative drivers right now. And every lap, there's more and more and more. And I think by the second session, we're going to see drivers go out there and be a lot more comfortable.
Absolutely.
Look at this Supra.
I believe this is
No, he's not here, unfortunately.
We'll see what I know.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad guess to guess TJ Hunt in a Supra, but it certainly looks the part. And again,
it sure does. This is a great looking car.
But you can just, watching the car snap back center, how much rear grip they have. And we talk about drift cars needing grip, right? They need grip to drift, but they don't need an infinite grip. And there's a lot of grip here that they don't need, probably.
To it. If you listen to some of these pros talk about it, they drive the car with the gas pedal. And yeah, like you said, believe it or not, that really comes down to how much grip you have, leading into how much control you have when that car is at angle, and it allows you to get that car to an extreme amount of angle as well. There are other ways, like I said, the low horsepower, a lot of PSI in the tires will do it too, but you're really sacrificing your digging out of the corners and save.
Wow, Pete really going after it through 1 there and had probably a little too much angle on exit. And the track, the other thing that's playing into this, oh man, through turn 2.
See how that'd be intimidating there.
Yeah, well, so the other thing, we haven't talked about this yet. A lot of drift tracks, Charlie, are flat in terms of the camber in the corner. There's tons of banking here.
Yeah.
So that's going to play into your footwork and the angle that you're trying to get to.
That's what we're seeing when these cars, they're getting in drift and they're getting out and it's snapping real hard on them. It's because they're cambered so hard. It is, you can see it in this corner, but it is kind of hard to tell from the air how much camber there are on some of these corners.
Yeah, and I think it's up to 10 degrees, which would be turn 5 is the most, which is actually equivalent or maybe a little bit less than Pikes Peak International Raceway on the oval where we have raced in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Pete's really throwing it in here.
Giving it all he's got. And turn 5 again. This is going to, if you can get this car to hang out that left rear tire, you can hang this whole corner if you've got enough power.
Yeah, you can see some of the tracks are just way inside going around this corner. It's going to be a tough one. It probably bevels out there on that white line too, so it's kind of a dangerous place. It'll suck you into that wall if you get a tire over it.
It definitely does. It's really just runoff there. It doesn't follow the same camber as the rest of the corner. And I think there's a handful of drivers that have come back in, and there's only a few that are still out kind of testing the water here still.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Very cool. What a beautiful place.
And even though it's a little gray and dreary today, we did get some great weather yesterday to really experience the Glen in its glory. And look at this, through the S13, through the bus stop here, get up on the curb with the left front.
Yeah.
You have natural clipping points out there. They got the painted curbs a little bit wide there, but got right out to it.
Figure it out.
Got a hand out the window. Kind of bailing out of that.
And that's it.
The other thing is with the high grip surface, you have to wonder about tire wear, right? Because you're burning up tires pretty quick. Well, here comes the Ute. What a photo opportunity this is,
really,
huh?
Really getting it sideways there. And that just might be trying to figure out what his limits are. But what a great sounding motor this is.
It does sound, you can hear it from all the way from up here in the booth, and we're quarter mile away from the corner.
Probably not sure what to do here.
Again, I think the S is, my guess is the S is no one's really going to try to commit to. I mean, it would be awesome if they could, but there's the walls, the blue bushes as they call them here, Charlie. They're pretty close.
Very high consequences.
Well, as I say that, here comes the Supra going for it at the top of the hill. Looks like Pete's rolling in.
Yeah, another thing to note here, because there's been no drifting here and because it's the first session, there are kind of no reference marks for these guys. We don't see big e-brake marks on the corners yet. We'll start to see it. You can start to see here in this in the front of the shot where, as a driver, you can see, okay, I can see that people are initiating here, kind of starting to lay the land a little bit, but could be misleading as well. We saw some tracks going around the inside of that corner, probably not the best line, and we might see drivers just naturally start to follow that because they can see where another car has made it through.
Right. Especially in the bus stop, as you mentioned, you're starting to see that here. I think this is probably the most natural feeling section for them. It's the flattest section on the course. It's slower than a lot of the rest of the course as well. But I think they're, from what I can tell, it really just seems to be a grip thing. They're just trying to break away from this sticky new asphalt that was laid down here in the fall of 2015, which is very new pavement. And drivers even said, I mean, racetracks get repaved all the time, but this track in particular, you add the camber into the mix, and now this track is incredibly sticky to the point of wearing out tires and causing tire failures in endurance races and things of the sort. It really does wear a lot on. So with that extra grip, it's going to make it harder. You have to commit harder and more and earlier and faster.
Yeah, the only way we're going to overcome the sticky track is more speed.
Or rain.
Or rain would do it too, but I would be surprised if we see a whole bunch of action in the rain just because it could loosen up so much and you really start sliding around.
There's a great look at Watkins Glen International. And here you can see at the top of that shot there, the NASCAR course straight from the carousel, straight back to turn number 10.
That does make sense now.
Yep, and then the boot section that peels off on the top right there. What a great shot. And here's some onboard here that we're going to see as this car's rolling down pit lane. And this is a red BMW. It's got a rack on top of it, ready to carry some skis.
All right. Look at that cool Chase Bay's handbrake. They make some nice stuff.
Yeah, Chase Bay's a GRIDLIFE partner here this season.
I tell you, they make some really killer parts for these cars.
And that's part of it. The art is not only on the racetrack, but also off of it as well.
I was going to mention that with drifting, for the folks out there that are maybe tuning in for the first time for something like this, the style of drifting is just as important as the driving. You get to see really personalities of drivers and how they approach it. And Chicago's kind of known for low cars, big chrome wheels. New York's got a different flavor. The South has got a different flavor, and they're all accepted. It's just different personalities come out in different areas and what they're into. So it's awesome that we get to see a BMW out here with a cage and a roof rack on it, and who knows, maybe he drove it here. I doubt it with the cage, but maybe.
There is as much diversity in the drift field as there is in the Touring Cup field or the Time Attack field, and that's something that we don't talk about a lot. You don't see a lot of front drive, obviously, but you do see a ton of variety in terms of the chassis types. We've seen sedans, we've seen coupes, we've seen hatchbacks, we've seen wagons.
There's
in particular
10 S13s here, and they all look different.
Right, and you take the same base Lego set and you build a different toy every time. It's just such a neat thing to watch here, but still tentative, learning, looking around, and figuring out Watkins Glen International. I think a lot of the drivers that went out and came right back in are mostly just taking notes for the next session, I think.
Very well could be, or they could be making some setup changes.
Here we go.
And brake pull into the bus stop.
And you see it not wanting to quite step out.
Yeah, I tell you, the hard part for me, even when we were playing this on a set of Corsa, is I just like to go fast everywhere.
Yeah.
So it ended up me crashing quite a bit. But as a driver, they just throwing it in pretty good. It'd be pretty fun to see what your drift car could do down the straight. A lot of these guys probably don't have an opportunity to run a racetrack this big.
Right.
So they might be finding out they're running out of gearing, or maybe their car doesn't cool as well as they thought it would. With smaller tracks, you're on throttle for 45 seconds maybe, but here we're probably doing 3 minute laps. and really probably having to manage some of the temperatures of these cars.
Right, that's another thing too. You mentioned the running out of gearing. That's true of all the cars here, that you're going to run into that. But in drift in particular, we talked about flatter tracks, smaller corner radii. You're generally on smaller facilities. And GRIDLIFE in particular is kind of unique in that we do a lot of full course drift, where elsewhere you're drifting on smaller bespoke drift circuits that are designed for this purpose. GRIDLIFE, we're drifting on tracks like Lime Rock Park, which is not traditionally a drift track. We're drifting now on Watkins Glen. Gingerman Raceway is a big racetrack even for drift.
Yeah.
But it just works out that it's fun to do.
The idea being is that we're into motorsports, period.
Yeah.
And this is a part of motorsports, and it shouldn't be different than anything else that anyone else is doing. So we have them all on the same track. Everyone experiences the same conditions, and we're all in it together. And we have a lot of cross respect from our GLTC field to our drift field to the HPD guys that are here, getting to watch all this happen and then drive the track Sunday. Pretty neat experience all in all.
Another handbrake slide there, and
looks like he's staying in it.
Giving it the best he's got here.
At least he's got his cell phone mounted up.
Yeah, I love the G meter there on the hanging from the mirror as well to give us a good perspective. There it is, through turn 9. Progressively more and more sideways. And so, speaking of the context from GLTC to drift and vice versa, there was a lot of drivers that went out in our grip lift sessions at CMP that said, I thought I was going fast, and this drift car comes sailing by me sideways, going faster than I was. And that's what we do here at GRIDLIFE, is we bring that context in, where if you're a grip driver traditionally, you might not have an understanding or respect for drift, but then you see it on the same course that you're on, and it brings that context back to, wow, that's actually impressive what they're doing.
Yeah, and you might even get some grip drivers saying, there's no way you can go into a corner that fast.
Right.
But you can if you're sideways.
Right, and got 800 horsepower throttling you towards the apex at that point.
Exactly, matters how you're gripped up.
So with this quiet end, here comes the Ute back on track. This is so cool. More Utes.
Really cool people. Really cool people to be out here. Perfect event for them.
Where are they from? Do you know?
Australia.
Oh, all the way from there.
Yeah. They're in the vendor section of the paddock over here. The car's on display. Really nice people. I recommend if you're on site and you have a chance to go talk to them, please do.
So heading down the back stretch now towards the bus stop again. I imagine that second session we're going to see a little bit more commitment, a little bit more cars also. Looks like Pete Collins is coming back out as well.
I think the people that are back out now are going to try some stuff here and see if they can't really start figuring this thing out. Yeah. Whoa. Beautiful.
Right out to the edge.
You got Mike Cohn holding the top of grid down. Doing a great job with all the drift drivers managing all these different cars with different horsepower levels.
And the other thing, while we're talking about grip, here's a factor that we hadn't really talked about yet: the temperature out here.
Look at the back of the Ute, hanging it out.
It's got a long wheelbase too, so that's going to make this.
You see it hopping?
Yeah.
It really looks like it's really trying to just stay straight on them.
Is it on leaf springs still?
I don't think so, but I don't know, to be honest with you. I doubt so. I doubt it.
Got a rear mount radiator.
Yeah, it looks like it's got a rear mount radiator.
There he goes.
Laying it down.
He's got it now. Woo. So speaking of the grip, the temperature, that's a huge deal. The cooler the racetrack is, within reason, the grippier it's going, grippier it's going to be.
Throw it down the boot?
Oh, he's going to try, I thought. Here comes Pete Collins into the bus stop now. And back to the left, back to the right. Here he comes.
Throttling on. He's going to stay committed.
Right out to the edge. He had it almost linked.
Yeah, props to everyone out there trying to figure this out. This is awesome. He's going in.
Right out. And you mentioned that track, the camber falls away right at that white line.
You can see the two different lines clearly around here. And Pete took a different line yet again. So it's really going to be a lot of figuring this out. I see a couple initiation marks coming in to the downhill, which again to me just looks like a bunch of fun, but you could tell the car gets light. Pete just staying in it. Beautiful.
That's probably the best we've seen at turn 6, actually. And then turn 7, this will be really difficult because of all the weight transfer change from down to up here.
The opposite of the corner before. Now you're going to really need to commit and stay in the horsepower, and the car is just going to need to eat through it. And you can see he ran out of horsepower there, it looked like, honestly.
Yep, and he had it going until about the three-quarter mark of the corner, and it probably gripped up also because of the rising pavement there.
You could talk a little bit about the differences of even a grip car when you soak up a hill like turn 1 for Road Atlanta for instance.
Whoa, here we go. Little manji there, almost had it connected to turn 2.
But you can really use the hill to suck up a lot of your speed and probably a lot of your angle. So that, it might require you really commit, throw it in hard, and then let that middle of that hill grab you.
Yeah.
And carry you through the rest of it.
And you do that in the grip car too.
Absolutely.
As you kind of use the uphill, the transition from down to up. As the car compresses, then you can turn the wheel and really get your steering input to stick as the weight comes down on the wheels. But in drift here, that's where you're going to basically get grip back from the rear, and where your car is going to straighten back out.
Just such a different corner from everything else.
A very unique
corner. We go through the bus stop one more time here. Throwing some angle, stay in it.
Yeah, he's got it now. Now back to the right. They're going to run out of racetrack on the left here.
Woo. Well done. Let's see if he goes for the next one.
Got it started
down that middle line.
Kind of ran out of racetrack to the right.
Look at how big that corner is, though.
It's huge.
Huge.
You can do it at 100 miles an hour pretty easily.
I bet you could. Yep.
In anything with a sticky enough tire and enough aero on it.
And enough skill to back it up.
Yep. I think I went in and I was doing our Hyundai N track preview this morning. I looked down going into turn 2 doing 100.
Wow.
And I was like, I am just started accelerating, and we still have a mile to go until the bus stop. It is a fast racetrack. And you feel the compression as well. You get the kind of sinking feeling as you go up the hill. And now Pete's heading down the backstretch here. You can see the track undulate a little bit.
It seems to be this is where Pete's starting to feel comfortable going into the bus stop, and then the downhill following it. Nice flick in. He's going to carry it wide.
Oh. Kind of reinitiated there with a little handbrake pull or clutch kick mid corner. Right there.
Sticking to this wider line, but you can see it just naturally pushing him in.
And he kicked it back out mid-corner again to try to keep it alive.
Yeah, another thing we haven't chatted about is the different ways to initiate your drift. Let's see if Pete goes for this downhill. That looked like an e-brake pull, but yep, downhill the car's lighter, so it's probably easier there than anywhere else to really get the drift going.
Here's turn 10 again, another fast corner. This is flat.
He is flying.
Whoa, he's got tons of angle there through 10, and almost to the fence on the other side of the track though.
Wow.
There, he carried that speed very, very well.
Yeah, but we might see something for these drivers that they normally don't have to deal with. They can usually clutch kick because they're at lower speeds, but now their clutch kick might not be as effective at 60 miles an hour as it was at 30.
Right.
So you might see some adjustments in entry styles. Probably e-brake being the go-to here.
I think you're going to have to get that because you're going so fast that clutch kicking isn't really, you're going to have a hard time getting the wheels to spin up.
You are, and even a lot of times to extend your drift or to change the angle of your car, you'll clutch kick mid-drift as well to help with that, but that might just upset the car. It might just grip up.
There's a look at the paddock there at Watkins Glen, and every paddock we've gone to, Charlie, we usually pack it pretty full. This is one that we got 200 cars here, and it still looks like you can get another 200 or 300 in.
You probably can.
It's a pretty enormous facility and very nice facility on top of that. But there's a look at the paddock. You see the NOS Energy Drink activation, where you can go hang out and grab a free NOS Energy.
Yeah.
And the Advanced Auto Parts pit stop. The live stream is on the TVs in there. You can kind of hang out with the Advanced folks. There's Toyo's activation, Jumbotron on the right, and Arcade and Garage 1.
Chase Bays and Toyo are going to kind of be the holding down the concourse that's going to happen here this weekend as well. Another element of Grid Life that's pretty neat, that we handpick some local cars to come out and have a good time on us. Toyo being a big part of that this year. I believe I've heard rumors of the top secret Supra showing up, which is an iconic car if you're in the JDM. So I'll be checking that out personally if that shows up on site.
Yeah, there's the NOS awning there. It's a
looking
great looking activation. Again, you can go get yourself a free NOS Energy. They got a handful of different flavors to try. I've got the Zero Sugar Turbo here, as Pete Collins gives it a Zero Sugar Turbo into the into the bus stop.
He's just trying to figure it out.
Again, it will require a little bit more energy coming in to complete that from nose to tail. And then into 5, which is that downhill right, and then into 6, which is another downhill corner. So if you could get the entry to the bus stop figured out, carry that into 5, and figure out how to manji into 6, that's a half a mile of racetrack that you could drift.
I cannot wait. And we do got to note, none of these drivers that we're seeing here are pros in any way, shape, or form. They don't have huge budgets to just blow tires off all day long. Really got to give them props to coming out here and try and figure this out. This is very intimidating, and we talked a lot about Pete Collins, but this is someone who's recent to this.
Right.
Last couple of years, he hasn't been doing this for 20 years or anything like that. So really a credit to him and his driver abilities.
The imitation factor is already high when you're in a car that's designed to go straight and narrow. Then you throw sideways and smoky and all that, and then or try to throw a tandem in there. Right. You got traffic also when you're sideways and smoking the tires. The intimidation factor goes way up.
It goes way up.
And the speeds, you're doing everything different also. It's not like you're doing a normal lap around here. Everything is a little different.
Everything's going to be, and it's going to change from lap to lap too, as you wear your tires out, as the track temperatures change. Maybe you link up with someone. Maybe you go into the pits.
Yeah. And there's about 5 or 10 minutes remaining in this session before we have our GRIDLIFE NOS Energy Track Battle Qualifying 1, which will be up next. And we do have another drift session on the broadcast a little bit later today. And if we get some weather, which we're expecting to see in the area in the next couple of hours, that could totally change everything.
Absolutely.
And bring that grip level way down, and maybe it'll bring the confidence level won't be any higher, I promise you that. But just because it's slippery.
It might help, though. It really might help.
You think it'll help? Because I think one of two things. The rain, if it comes, it's going to slick the track up. It'll make it easier to slide, but it's also going to be pretty intimidating on top of that to not have grip as Pete goes way sideways out of one.
Just to stay in it.
And that was very nicely done. And this is, when we did this in Assetto Corsa, turn 1 in particular was challenging because you're coming in so fast.
Yes.
And the 90 is a pretty tight corner down there at turn 1. And so you come out with a ton of angle and then you're driving at a wall.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll be very interested to see if it rains. It's going to depend on what the rain is. If we get hit, downpoured, slammed, it is going to change the track dramatically for everyone involved. But if we get a little dusting, sprinkle here and there, it might be just what some of these drivers need. That rain is a horsepower equalizer. So now all of a sudden that BMW's got 800 to the wheel with a little rain.
Yeah.
So might be just what Pete Collins needs to link some of these corners.
Well, Pete just did the bus stop beautifully there. And then into 5, this is what we were talking about, trying to link these two sections together. Kind of snapped out of it mid-turn there. But I think you can get 3 or 4 corners stitched if you've got the grip level just down a little bit. And maybe, hey, you burn some tires off. You're using some of those older, harder heat cycle tires. That could help as well.
I think after this session, I'm going to make my rounds around the paddock and talk to a few of these drivers and pick their brain and see what they thought was the more difficult part or what they're going to do different for the next session. Because they're not going anywhere. This is the first session.
Right.
This is the first session of the weekend.
Yep.
We got a cool Boss S14 out here. Pretty neat body kit on this. Front end looks like an old Camaro, so to speak.
Right into it here. I don't think we saw this car out on track. I think just for the sighting lap.
Did a sighting lap, yep.
And we have not seen him since.
But it's got some horsepower.
You can hear it roaring up the hill. And there's still time for him to figure this out, so we'll watch what he does in the bus stop here. But even the bus stop, a high commitment area where you got walls on either side.
We can see the track. The bus stop is definitely where everyone's going for it. It's probably the lowest speed on the track, hence the name. But
yeah, the bus stop is named aptly because if you look down from above, the way that you turn into it and the way that you come out of it, it looks like a bus pulling over to the curb and pulling back out again.
And they're solely to slow cars down.
Yeah, that was installed in 1992 after there was a bunch of really bad accidents down here in Turn 5. They installed this section to slow cars down.
Great car control.
But that was excellent.
Inside line.
Wow. Beautiful. And this is probably the most complete section that we've seen. That was very well done. Now will he continue in 6?
Sipping NOS for the working man.
There you go. I'm going to save to crack open mine for Track Battle Q1, which will be coming up here in a little while. But that was a well-executed section of drift there from the bus stop to Turn 5 and into 1, a little wide there.
I like the commitment, though. There you
go. Mean, there's tons of pavement, Charlie. There's no short of it
back
down
over
there.
The rumbles. Wow.
Yep. There's no shortage of pavement down there at Turn 1.
Stays back in it. Nope.
And I suppose there aren't really the concept of track limits in drift either, so I don't think
there are, but it's really, I mean, these rumbles, they're rumble strips.
Yeah.
They're not smooth.
Right.
So it kind of depends on how comfortable you are with that.
Yeah, the turn 1 rumble strips are a little different than the remainder of the track. They're actually more of a traditional like highway style rumble strip, but the grooves are very close together, so they're not quite as upsetting as the ones in the S's and the bus stop and everywhere else. But those will chatter a chassis.
Right.
They'll
when
send
your car is
3
inches off the ground,
yeah,
it doesn't take much.
No, it definitely doesn't take much. And if you've got a very low profile sidewall tire, you'll hook those grooves.
See, hand up if he's trying to link up with someone here to tandem. A lot of times, we'll see this later in the weekend too. You'll see drivers stick their arms out the window to communicate with each other, saying, "Yeah, get up close to me," or "Back off me. I don't want you behind me." We see it more at different festivals, but then you'll start seeing people hold up 4 fingers. And
wow, look at this out of turn 11. And he's coming. That looks like a movie scene with the smoke billowing in the background and heading down the front straight.
Really neat kit on this car. Kind of a polarizing kit when it came out. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people really like it. I think it's pretty neat.
I think it's cool.
It really separates all the S14s here from each other.
And it's something you mentioned is that every S chassis is different.
Yeah, they all got their own style. It's great. Again, I'm going to really walk around the paddock here and talk to some of these guys and gals and see what setup's working and what power levels working and who's doing what.
So up the S's here, and just a couple minutes remaining here in the drift session as drivers complete their first ever laps of Watkins Glen International. Now we saw a couple more cars doing the sighting laps than we have seen take laps here. So I wonder how many went out and saw that and realized they need to make a setup change potentially.
Very well, yeah.
So what would you do in terms of setup changes? Can you adjust, your ride height? Would that be useful? Your tire pressures? What would you adjust to help here?
My go-to, it depends if the car is really grippy. I would probably just start with adding air pressure and then maybe taking out a little bit of camber in the back just to get that car to slide a little bit more. But this car, he's got it figured out, staying in it. That would be my go-to. But it could solely be a power thing. There's going to be it's going to be hard to overcome some of that stuff. But hopefully we get just a tiny bit of rain. I can't believe I'm saying hopefully we get a tiny bit of rain.
Well, sometimes you do a little rain dance up here in the announcer booth. That comes with the territory.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the GLTC drivers are also good too, and the time attack drivers are also good too. I don't think it'll really affect anything, but we get a lot of questions, on site. What happens if it rains? We still run.
Right.
Unless there's lightning, these guys and gals here, they're drivers.
It is an all-weather sport.
It's an all-weather sport. We're not packing it up with a little drizzle by any means. So,
yeah, it definitely changes a lot of drivers' approaches to it. But some drivers really like driving in the rain because you mentioned it's a horsepower equalizer. That's true across the board.
Absolutely.
You don't really need to have the fastest car in the world if you know how to handle the rain. And there's a lot of drivers in this field in GLTC and time attack that are looking for it, especially with the new track battle format. Everyone's got the same conditions to race in. And
BRZ that just popped up?
It is a BRZ, I thought.
Wow. Soft spot for Kyle.
Well, you know how it gets my heart bring a BRZ out on track.
Bring a BRZ out.
Even better if it's got some crazy V8 in it or something.
Well, it definitely doesn't have the Subaru motor.
It definitely does not have that. And here it comes over. Oh, no, yes.
And if it does,
yes,
it's about to blow up.
Oh, boy. Down into turn 1. Let's see if he goes for it.
He's carrying some speed, that's for sure. Well, we should see a big e-brake pull here.
There it is.
Go for it.
Whoa.
It's got some horsepower. It's got rear mount sticking out, some fans. Coming back on track, guys.
All right. Yeah, and the other thing, you talked about the camber in turn 5 when you go over the line. Same thing here in turn 1. The first corner has a lot of camber.
Bevels out.
Right at the rumble strip, it bevels out straight. So you go over that, you're going to get a little bit of air and then drop onto a more level surface.
Yeah, it could, really screw up your exhaust or any low-hanging parts.
I've seen lots of cars scrape coming back over.
Yeah.
And it'll drag something. I think actually the first session of the day got checkered early because there was debris over there in one from someone dragging something. So the curbs will get you around here. They're designed to keep you on the racetrack.
See if this BRZ goes into the bus stop. You can see they're lining up for it.
Thinking about it.
Clutch kick. Nope, just a feint.
There it is.
Little e-brake onto the throttle.
And credit where credit is due, as long as we continue through the bus stop here without any dramas. These drivers, for the first time ever drifting at Watkins Glen, have not touched a single blade of grass.
Yeah.
Which
kept it extremely clean.
When you're working with facilities like Watkins Glen International that have such a high standard for their facility, it's so important to keep it clean and tidy, and these drivers have done an exceptional job of that. And they did the same at Lime Rock Park last year, too.
They do it everywhere we go.
Everywhere we go. And they do an exceptional job. This is the first time that they've ever done this.
Yeah. This is Yep, credits.
Woo. And there's lots of divots in that tire bundle, and thankfully none from these guys so far. Into 10. I love this low shot here because they get that sensation of speed as they come through. Disappearing, you can see the camber. They fall behind the banking of the corner.
Yeah, I wonder if that's happening halfway through that corner. The cars are really starting to load up with that camera and just not being able to power through it.
I think that's part of it.
It does seem like that a little bit now that you can. That shot was a great example of all that camber there. Even here, you can see how much that wall is banked.
Tons. Again, I think 5 to 10 degrees as you're banking around here at different corners. The carousel is the highest banked on the racetrack, and the S's have plenty. So does the exit. This is turn 4 at the very back of that shot, where you're continuing to pick up speed before it flattens out. Into the bus stop again. Here we go.
So throwing away the first part to try and figure out the second part, and we'll see that be a pretty good strategy that'll pay off for a lot of people throughout the weekend is chop it up into chunks and figure it out, and then try and add the manji to link it all together.
And you heard the engine drop down in RPM as soon as it hooked up at the exit of 5. And we're probably getting pretty close to the checkered here in the next couple of minutes. I'm just poking my head out to see what else is coming. Here comes the BRZ. That thing looks mean with that wide stance in the front.
It sure does. It's got a lot of camber up front. It definitely has got something hanging out of it.
On the bottom.
Big V8.
Yep.
I'm assuming.
A lot of space between the frame rails, not a lot under the hood vertically.
Ooh, really going for it. If you could stay in it. Nice correction.
Nicely done.
Yeah, but see, that camber is just sucking them back into the inside of that corner. And because of that, it's probably really hard to manji that too. It's going to manji to the right way easy, and then be real hard to go the other way with that camber.
I think the challenge here is when you're going through turn 1 in particular, you're on throttle trying to keep the tires spinning. You have the camber, so now you have to keep the wheels spinning very fast to keep the wheels spinning and drifting.
Yep.
But if you lift, you're going to grip up and go straight again.
Right.
And so there's a very fine line, it seems like, at turn 1 in particular, that seems to be a particular challenge. But they'll figure it out, and maybe the rain will slick it up just enough to make it a little easier.
One good thing we do have going for us right now, no sun, and the temperatures are relatively cool. So these cars usually probably run really hot, with oil temps and stuff like that. Especially to staying on full throttle as much as they do. You'll hear these cars banging off the rev limiter, which you won't hear so much in GLTC, on the rumble strips.
Yep. Clipping point B.
Now, it seems like everyone that's made it through here has touched that inside left on that rumble. That must be crucial to getting through that second half of the bus stop.
Yeah, I mean, really, the fact of the matter is the track's very narrow there, and to get through it efficiently, you kind of have to hit it.
Right.
Otherwise, you're purposely avoiding them.
It's like going forward into 1 here. See an e-brake pull. Slide through. There's the manji. Yep.
And the other thing,
big space.
The camber doesn't even go away on corner exit. The track is still banked a couple degrees all the way up to turn 2. So even once you get through the corner, you're still getting dragged back to driver's right.
Yeah, we can see how many tire marks are kind of heading at that wall there.
Lots of them.
Great looking car. Great job. Going back out.
And this might be the last couple of laps. We've got about 5 minutes until our GRIDLIFE NOS Energy Track Battle Championship qualifying session will start. And we'll cover that. We'll have Greg Kramer back. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes' time, but just finishing up the first preview laps of what's to come in the drift sessions here at Watkins Glen International. Again, I'm Kyle Heyer with Charlie Enslin. Up here, high atop Watkins Glen International. Really great view from up here. Can't see a lot of the corners from our vantage point, but you certainly do see all the scenery and a lot of the straightaways here as well.
What a beautiful place.
Yeah, it really is.
I've seen some great racing. I see all the Sunday Cup cars starting to line up.
And I think there might be some Club TR cars in that mix as well, as the checkered
flag
flies. And so that will be it.
Still try the bus stop.
One last go.
Big angle coming out, extends it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, see, there's that touch on that rumble.
Right back out. Into 5. Can he carry it through the outer loop now? Again, it accelerates towards the inside.
Sucking you into that inside corner there.
Same thing. It really is a challenge. But with that, checkered flag has fallen. We're going to step away for a brief moment. We'll be back with GRIDLIFE NOS Energy Track Battle Championship, qualifying one from Watkins Glen International. Kyle Heyer with Charlie Ensign. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Woo!